podcast day right now. Hi friends, Mars here. Welcome in. Welcome to the Hey BrownBerry podcast. I have just realized that although I'm recording through my microphone for this podcast, I still have my Bluetooth earbuds in. You'd think this was my first day. I realized that because I thought, gosh, I sound quiet. Am I not speaking loud enough? No, I just forgot that step. I'm so glad you're here. This is probably the most haphazard I have been in putting together some piece of an episode. I actually was just watching some Vlogmas episodes from podcasters I love, and the feeling hit me that it was time to get back in front of the camera and get back in touch with you. Really, that's what it is. It's not so much about sitting down here and talking to my phone. It's about another opportunity to connect with those of you out there. So let's do that. Let's connect. Today is December 4th. I always remember this as one of my best friend's birthday, so that's a great start to the month. And we're 4 days into what I'm calling Maker's December. I am actually following a make-along called Maker's December by way of Instagram. I'll put the hashtag here for that effort in case you want to join me. I joined that effort because I have had a very busy year. For someone who was supposed to be slowing down, I have actually taken on a good bit of activity. All good things, for the most part, things that I don't regret. I mean, opportunities to teach and travel and meet some of you. Fantastic. But it's busy. It doesn't matter. If you're doing something you love, there's still work involved, most likely. So December was my target month for bringing down the pace in terms of moving around and doing a lot of things and sinking back into making. I'll give you a snapshot of what will be on my needles, on my hook, and on my spinning wheel this month. I realized just now that if I adjusted the camera a little bit, I can actually sit back in this chair and relax in this chair, which is what it's for. You're joining me in our guest room, which is actually my craft room. We don't have a lot of guests come and stay overnight. So yeah, it's really my craft room, and when it needs to, it doubles as a guest room. Do you have a space in your house like that? I feel very fortunate to be able to store all the things in one area. I'm working on a project that is related to Advent. We are not much of a religious household, but every year I find myself celebrating the lead up to Christmas by way of some kind of Advent make-along. And for the third year in a row, I've done some swaps with a couple of my friends. I know that a lot of companies offer some pretty spectacular yarn-related or tea-related or even chocolate and treats type bundles for Advent, and that's awesome. I think it's great that those options are out there. It's not in my budget to do that in I guess the conventional way. But through my relationship with a couple of my favorites, I have had a lovely Advent experience. Natalie, who is Remembrances Pottery on Instagram, and Maria, who is ninja.chickens on Instagram. They signed on again for another Advent year with me, and I'm really, really pleased that we've done it again, because this year I had to get a little more creative because we agreed to do a yarn Advent with specific weights of yarn. These are leftovers from our stash, and pick a project that was intentionally scrappy or stripy or in some way amenable to all different yarn colors. For the most part, we sent each other specific yarn weights to make it easy. And down here in my lap, I'm holding the beginning of my project. I chose a project, a crochet project for my Advent making this year. Crochet is fast. I've been gifted some DK to worsted weight yarns by those two lovely ladies. And so I knew that the project itself would grow really quickly and be very satisfying. So what you're looking at is 2 of the 4 days worth of yarns that I've received. So this stunning red Harrisville Designs and a beige kind of natural colored yarn that I received from Natalie. And I'm sure with 24 days worth of yarn, not many people will be interested in the specific details of every yarn. The point is that I've gotten some gorgeous colors to combine. So from those two ladies, my first 4 yarns look like this. The beauty of this project that I'm making is it fits a couple of things. Again, it's amenable to different yarn colors. I'm going to have some lovely stripes, and it's a poncho. I'm going to show it to you. This pattern is called White Russian. It's a free pattern, so I have no qualms about showing it to you. So as you can see at the top here, this is the portion I'm working on right now. In the sample pattern, it is multicolored. I actually believe the designer used one yarn that was variegated. And so that collar piece is shown in the example with more than one color. And then the body is primarily a solid color with a little bit of the contrast on the edges. Now, the reason I feel like a poncho is perfect is because I've been wanting one for quite a while. I'm trying to be very thoughtful about the projects that I make. And I start with, how will I use the item? Why do I want the item in my wardrobe? And for me, a poncho is a combination of the two things I love about cold weather garments. It covers my shoulders. Now, in this case, it covers my shoulders to a point, not all the way down like the sleeves of a sweater, but enough that I know once my shoulder coverage is taken care of, I'm going to feel pretty warm. It also has, on this version anyway, a high enough kind of collar and neck piece that takes care of another area that I have to have covered in order to feel cozy. I love a good shawl. I love wearing my shawls bandana style, which means I put the bulk of it around the front of me and wear it almost like a large cowl. But then my shoulders are exposed. And I love wearing a shawl around my back in a traditional way, where the majority of the shawl hangs down my back and keeps that warm. And, you know, I'll bring the ends of it around the front. But then my neck is cold. So to me, this is the dream combination. I know that with the different yarns that I will receive from my Advent bundle, it's going to be quite colorful. And I am so good with that. I am totally fine with that. I think that the format is what will make it so that I wear it very often. So thank you, ladies, for making it so that I can enjoy thoughts of you all month long. Each of them sent me 12 minis, so I alternate days between packages, which also makes it fun to see what color is coming next. Obviously, I'm a little behind since it's December 4th, and there is one and a little bit color block in here. It's fine. I'm deciding it's fine. It would be great to think that I could keep up every single day with finishing each of the minis, and maybe if I didn't have some other things going on that I wanted to finish in the month, I could easily do that. See the size of them. It's doable, but I'm not going to push for that. I'm actually going to use this project to remind me to take it slow. I'm committed to the item itself, so I'll take my time. I was also very fortunate to be part of the Lee Ravelry group Advent Mini Swap. Lee has a wonderful podcast out here, the Lee podcast, out here on YouTube. I've been a member of her Ravelry group and a friend of hers for a couple of years now. And this mini swap, I think, is so cleverly designed. And I'll tell you a little bit about it in case it's something you'd like to partake in next year. Lee sets up quarterly swaps, and her intent is that you can either decide to participate in 1, 2, 3, or all 4 quarters. And you can swap mini skeins or mini balls of fingering weight yarn throughout the year. She assigns partners every quarter, so you get a different partner each quarter, most likely. And you can decide if you want to use your minis as soon as you get them, or save them all up for the end of the year and knit them throughout the month of December. That's the option I chose. I signed up for all 4 quarters. I've received lovely packages from around the world because I chose the option to swap internationally. And I resisted the urge to use the yarn before now, and it's paying off. I'm making some socks that I intend to donate for charity. Now, public accountability. I just said I'm making some socks that I intend to donate to charity. There is a very good chance that when I finish these socks, I am going to be sorely tempted to keep them for myself. I will try my best to thwart that temptation by not making them in my size on purpose, which is a good thing. I have larger than average feet. And so knitting them for charity as I intend also means making them smaller than I usually do. And it will take less time. Here is the progress on my Advent socks so far. I started out with a mini skein that I already had in my stash of one of my favorite yarns, which is Patton's Crochet. This is a very standard sock yarn. It's what I would consider to be a workhorse yarn. It's very affordable. I can often get it for $5 or less for a 50-gram ball. And I love it, although it does have some nylon in it. I love it because it is extra sturdy. It is dependable. So I use it for socks, and I've had some left in my stash for a while. And you see I started my cuff with it here. It's a great neutral color. This colorway is called Flax. And I intend to at least do the cuff and toes with it. I may do the heel of these socks. So I turn these the proper way as they'll be worn. I may do the heel in whatever Advent Mini comes up next. So I'm trying my best to make them matching. And what I found at first is, in order to get through these 10-gram minis in a stripe about this size so far, this sock is on 64 stitches around. For one, it was taking a long time. And secondly, I thought, by the time I make about an average size sock, I'll still have plenty of minis left. So now I'm intentionally making the stripes a little more narrow, and I'm keeping the leftovers from doing that with the intention of making another pair of socks. So I hope to at least get a couple of pairs of socks out of this Advent mini swap experience. Thank you, Lee, for everything you've done to get us together in this effort. I really enjoy it. There's a great discussion going on in her Ravelry group, and if you just wanted to peek in at what people are doing and make some plans for next time, I encourage that. I've been doing some of that, peeking around at what other folks are making this December. I'm knitting them on 2.25 millimeter double pointed needles. And just a word about that. Many times when I start a project, I have great intentions about the perfect needles to match the yarn. But more often than not, there is a whole period of time at the beginning where I switch back and forth between different needle types. I'm grateful that my stash of needles is quite plentiful. I have fixed circular needles, interchangeable needles, and double pointed needles in a variety of sizes. But what that means is that sometimes part of my prep process is to launch into the project with a type of needle and then switch that out 2 to 3, even 4 times. It took me 3 different iterations to get down to, I want to use double pointed needles for these socks. And in fact, if I had 2 sets of wooden double pointed needles available, I would be doing that for both. I'm okay with that. What it tells me is that I very likely won't be the type of knitter who buys a single set of interchangeable needles or even buys an entire set of fixed circular needles, for example, in one material. Just knowing that it takes me a little while when I start the project to get into the groove. Does the yarn move smoothly along the needle material? Does the feel in my hands match what I want? For example, in the case of these socks, I want them to move pretty quickly. I want the yarn to move quickly. I don't really want to fuss too much with the stitches. Now you might be thinking, double pointed needles seem kind of fussy and a little bit fiddly. But for these small circumferences, I really get into a rhythm very quickly. Shout me out in the comments. Do you have a similar situation with your needles and knitting wherein it takes you a little while to decide exactly which ones are the right ones for the project? Or maybe you're just a diehard with a specific needle type and material and that works for you every time. I want to hear about it. Mostly because I don't want to think I'm the only person who goes through this. Or if you have the opposite view and you're a one needle type, shout me out the value of that way of thinking. Those 2 Advent projects are things that I try to touch at least once a day so far, and that's working out well. It's nice to sit down and think, I already know what's happening here with these projects, and I can move forward. As part of my Making December, I also have kind of a stretch project. I am, if nothing else, an adventurous beginner. I like trying new things. I will admit that I get frustrated pretty quickly with things that I don't do well right off the bat. Maybe that's the Scorpio in me. I have high expectations for my own capabilities. Sewing is one of those things that I will admit challenges me greatly, even in the small starter projects that I've done so far. I have yet to sew a garment. But this month, that is going to change. More public accountability. My friend Jenny, who is Tiny Paper Foxes on Instagram, was at the Wing and a Prayer Farm Makers Market this summer. What a treat to see her again. We've met in person before. I'm a great admirer of hers. And my spirit just takes to her. What can I tell you? This is one of those things where I don't need to question it too much. I just really like her as a person. And when we met this summer, I happened to be buying this pattern. This pattern is the Patricia Camilla Pinafore pattern by Ellen Mason, another person that I spent time with on the farm in the summer. She's also fantastic. I was buying this pattern at the Maker's Market in Ellen's booth, And I said to Jenny, I think I'm finally going to do this sewing thing. Why don't we do a sew along? Just you and me, two people who would like to sew garments more. And she said yes, which is awesome. I think that that moment was a decision moment for both of us, that we were finally going to get on this train. This was the month we chose to work together, and we're discussing our plans online. I've read through the pattern. There's some great options in here. Ellen, if you're watching this, I love the way you write a pattern, because as a beginner, I feel encouraged already. The options make me feel like I'm making choices and decisions and progress right off the bat. I'm actually thinking that I will sew. I will sew the tunic length of this pinafore with a V back. So mine will have a V back kind of like that. And it will be tunic length kind of like that with pockets. And I'm excited. I have not settled on my fabric yet. I do have some fabric in my stash that I know will work well. My main goal in the last couple days was to just look through the pattern, kind of bring my anxiety level down about the whole garment sewing thing, and choose my style so that I could go forth with cutting out pieces. Even saying that makes me nervous. The cutting part, guys. Cutting. Most of the time when you cut, you can't go back. That's okay. Jenny will be my comfort, and this sew along will be my motivation. Making December is already giving me a feeling of lightness. It's helping me to return to some things I really enjoy, and I'm purposely taking time to be more reflective. It might be that for you, this season does not leave a lot of time for that. But if you can snatch a moment here or there to think, what's one thing I would like to make or do or see or experience this month? Please do that for your friend Mars. It's almost like taking back time for yourself. The things I'm working on within this month have given me those reflective moments. When I'm sitting down and planning, when I'm sitting here and actually knitting, my brain gets a little bit of time, and they don't feel the same as other things on the to-do list, if you know what I mean. So steal some of that back for yourself. Pretty please. On my spinning wheel right now, well, let me show you. Huh? What's that? Why, that's an empty flyer, Mars. Wah, wah. I'm only teasing. This is empty for a good reason. I finished my first bobbin for my sweater spin. There she is. I am planning to knit a sweater next year with my own handspun yarn. I haven't chosen a sweater pattern. To be honest with you, there may not be a pattern. I might just knit to fit as I go. But this is the first of at least 3 bobbins worth of handspun. Well, this is a single ply. And there will be 3 because I have a braid in these similar colors, another braid that I will ply along with it. And so with those other 2 bobbins worth of single ply, I will create ultimately a 2-ply yarn. Let me show you the braids. It might be easier for you to see all the color that's in here. I've reorganized the craft room in a way that makes it easy for me to go and get fiber when I want it. This is a good thing. So what I did is I took fiber from 4 different suppliers. All that information is on my Ravelry page. I'm trying to keep good notes about my handspun. So the makers of these fibers will be listed there. And similar to what's on the bobbin right now is this braid. Oh. So here's a picture of it live. You can see throughout the braid there is intentionally, whoopsie daisy, intentionally throughout the braid there are different bits. I have put these together in this format. They didn't come like this. I've taken braids from these 4 different providers and I've just made a chain of them so that I can spin off of this braid and get a mix of all of these colors as I go throughout creating this single. Here's a picture of them kind of all put together. The other braid is a much more neutral themed braid. Some cream colors, some gray. I intentionally kept this more neutral set because ultimately when I ply it together with the other 2, it will give a more muted effect. Now, as much as I love these bright oranges and blues, for a sweater that I intend to wear very often, I'm looking for something a bit more toned down, and I'm hoping that bringing it all together will make for almost a marled effect in the sweater, with a strong undertone coming from the neutrals. Now, those of you who are spinners out there, when I talk about combining all of these to make a 2-ply, you may already be able to visualize what that's going to look like. When these 2 things come together, my limited understanding as a beginner is that as I spin and then ply, I'm going to get just a variety of combinations. Some will be very subtle, some will be distinct stripes because colors will line up with each other. Some will be barber poled where 2 very contrasting colors end up next to each other. I'm good with all of that. I feel like that's going to give the sweater itself, which will more than likely be something like a simple top-down raglan pullover, it's going to give it character. I'm also not interested in overcomplicating this process. I know that there are really good ways to purposely plan out your colors within a handspun sweater. And I know that I could separate these braids in a way that would give me, for example, some distinct color stripes where 2 plies of the same color will come together. I've watched some amazing videos about that, and that may be something I try at some point. But since this is my first spin for a sweater, and a lot of spinning time will go into this, I am intentionally doing it in a way that's a bit more organic, and I'm kind of excited to see how it will all turn out. In the meantime, I'm going to get the next bobbin loaded and start spinning some more singles. One last project I'm going to share with you has been on my needles for a couple of weeks, and man, oh man, it is such a treat to find a new to me designer and sink into their design style. I am knitting Rift by Jacqueline Cieslak. Jacqueline is, in my estimation, a pro. She has recently released an update to this Rift pattern, which includes a long sleeve option. Jacqueline has been really a champion for size inclusivity and for other really important conversations that have been happening on Instagram. And I've had this pattern in mind even when it was the short sleeve version. I thought, boy, that looks like something I really want to try. I have yet to intentionally knit a cropped sweater, and you can see that this one is cropped. And every time I see a photo of her in it, I think, I need that whole aesthetic. I need the whole thing. I need the long skirts. I need the apron. I want all of it. But I'm going to start with the cropped sweater, and I feel like there are things in my wardrobe that will complement this quite well. So I'm making the long sleeve version of this. I don't think it's giving too much away here, just to give you a glimpse at the schematic and my notes, which is just to say she gives you every important measurement in her pattern. And the reason that matters mostly to me is I often modify sleeve length, bicep circumference, even sometimes the difference in the back of my sweater to the front of my sweater can make or break how well it fits me. And her schematic and layout of measurements is so detailed that I could go through and point by point choose where I might want to modify and where I might want to knit to pattern. I highly, highly, highly recommend this pattern if you're considering this sweater. Even if you don't want to knit it cropped, that's a very simple adjustment to make. But because I have been knitting this and finding the most brilliant design elements within the pattern itself, I want everybody to make one. So I'll show you my progress. I've chosen the option to make a V-neck front and a boat neck back. So here's the front. And similar, but with a slight difference in the boat neck, here's the back. I have started one of the sleeves. So I've got my circular needles on here. Apologize for a little bit of tangly business. But I've got one sleeve going. And as I said, I'm knitting the long sleeve version. There is a short sleeve option within the same pattern. I love this twisted rib design detail at the side. What I'm showing you now is the split hem and side body of the sweater. And that twisted rib detail continues up into the underside of the arm. Love that. It's been quite an enjoyable knit. I started it while I was on my birthday trip out in the Pacific Northwest, and it kept me good company for sure. And then I was able to knit on it over Thanksgiving. In fact, I had a little bit of help knitting on it. Let me share that with you.
I did it!
Did you? All right, let me see it again. It's gonna make my sweater amazing. It's gonna have Eden stitches in it. See how easy it is to remember those steps?
Mm-hmm.
Well done, young lady. Thank you.
Okay.
Beautiful. Yeah, my niece put a whole row on it at one point, and that was a treat because I just taught her to knit earlier this year, and she was actually quite eager to sit in my lap and try it out. She thought it was just an incredible thing for me to be knitting a sweater. Sure, for someone that young, that concept is pretty incredible. It's, you know what? I'm 44 and it's incredible. Okay, knitting a sweater that you can wear is incredible. Let us not devalue that. So, I'm loving it. I've been able to try it on. It fits beautifully. I'm trying really hard to get the sleeves just right. In previous projects, I've had trouble with not fitting my sleeves properly. In maybe one or two cases, the sleeve as written in the pattern was too narrow for me, as I have, I guess, my bicep to bust to, I don't know, my torso measurements maybe don't match what would be considered standard. I don't know the reason, but I have had trouble with sleeves being tight even for my correct bust measurement. So I'm paying a little bit more attention to that. In this case, what it means is I'm not decreasing as quickly, and I have done what Jacqueline calls the bicep adjustment. There's a bicep adjustment in the pattern. I mean, talk about well thought out. So I'm on Sleeve Island, and I think that's the perfect holiday knitting, to be honest. I can sit and watch people like Zoe on the Pins and Needles podcast do Vlogmas every day, make a little sleeve progress. I'm also enjoying Paige the Framer and her Vlogmas, which is being done on IGTV. I mean, these are great ways to make a few rounds on a sweater sleeve or sock. And I have company with my friends. Friends, before I leave you, I just want to tell you that I have been announcing on Instagram all this week what I'm calling Mars on the Move 2020. You know I love a good reframe, so when I looked at my calendar for 2020 and saw that it was blissfully full, yes, blissfully full, I thought, well, I'm going to embrace that, and I'm going to tell you about it. I think of the things I have coming up next year, and I'm honestly astounded. I just feel like, even though these are things that I have planned and discussed and agreed to, it still feels to me like just being given these beautiful gifts over and over. And instead of being stressed out about the logistics and all of the other things that will undoubtedly cause me some stress at some point, for right now, I'm embracing Mars on the Move. So I would love to share with you a few places where I will be in the coming year. I'm just going to do a few, and if I get another podcast episode in this month, I'll do a few more. One of them that I just announced on Instagram recently is a handspun class that I'm teaching at Frame and Fibre in February. Over the weekend of the 15th and 16th, I will be at Frame and Fibre in New Jersey. Yes, the Frame and Fibre, run by Paige the Framer. Paige has agreed to kindly host a handspun class so that I can come to the Northeast US and meet some amazing people who'd like to learn how to spin on a drop spindle. I'm going to put details in the description box about that class, and I'll link here to Paige the Framer's website, the Frame and Fibre website, which also has information. I'm offering 2 days worth of classes. Both will be the same class. We're just offering them on Saturday and again on Sunday so that you have options. I'm providing all the materials you'll need for a drop spindle spinning class, and Paige is providing lunch. So you'll be all set. You'll go home with your own yarn and a full belly. I mean, this is a good weekend. So I hope you'll join me. Registration for that is directly through me. I'm taking class fees through PayPal, and a payment of $65 gets you several hours of class time and a delicious meal. Information about that will be below. I am also thrilled to bits to be teaching at the Spring Squam Art Workshop in June of next year. Now, I'm telling you about this even though I know that pre-registration for that event is already sold out. Yeah, so that might mean that it's not an option for you unless there's some kind of waiting list, which is possible. But I'm excited about it, so I'm sharing it. And if you're going to be there at Squam Lake in June of next year, will you please let me know that in the comments below? I'm teaching a pretty in-depth intermediate to advanced sock class, and having attended Squam 2 years in a row. It's a magical place. I actually still find myself thinking, how is it that I'm teaching there? Because when I attended there, I thought this is something everyone should know about. And so now to be part of the event itself is incredible. I'm grateful. I want that recorded. I'm grateful. Squam Art Workshops. There is information on their website, which I will put here. And the fall retreat, which happens in September, as far as I know at this point on December 4th, still had some slots open. So check out the website and all things Squam. You may decide that it's something you want to do. And I will quickly talk about another retreat in Maine, the Knit Maine retreat. The first weekend in September, I will be teaching at Knit Maine. It's another opportunity that came about through the wonders of the interwebs, and it is a 4-day, 3-night getaway in Maine. I am very, very honored to also be a featured podcaster at that event, as well as an instructor. The reason I'm excited about both of those pieces is I love the classes I'll be teaching, and you get more info about that at the website. And I love that part of my role there will be to capture the event itself. That means another virtual visit for you, my friends. Yes. So if you can't be there, and I hope you can, but if you can't be there, know that I will be there capturing the spirit of it all for all of us. Everything you need to know about that one is on the website as well, and you can always email me if I mention one of these events or workshops and you want more information. heyBrownBerry@gmail.com will get you straight to me. Did we take our breath at the beginning? I don't think we did. Let's take one now. Man, oh man, I love being here with you. Thanks for joining me, friends. I look forward to seeing you again next time. I hope that you are making this December. And if you are, share it with me. Share it with all of us. Take good care of yourselves. I'll see you soon. Bye for now. This is how we remind ourselves to insert stuff into the video.